Welcome everybody to the boys. I'm Chris, and here is a more relaxed version of kind of what the boys is all about, which is talking about creativity, talking about things that we love in nerd culture and the counterculture and all types of cultures, all types of communities, and where we're gonna kind of discuss one that hit my heart and hit everyone's hearts out there in the nerd community. X-Men 97 was really a just a blossoming achievement when it comes to animation, all sorts of things, and nerd. And with us today is somebody who we had on the Boys podcast a couple of years ago during around the COVID times. We had some fun with Sebastion Envi, the creator of Let Us Geek. And you can find Let Us Geek on Skunk Like Media, right there, Sebastian.
Yeah, yeah. That's where I have the lug videos, short films that I'm working on. I'll have some upcoming, and then some of my wrestling stuff as well. You can get it all at Skunk Life Media on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, if you've watched a couple of our other videos, I'm slightly in the wrestling industry, doing my thing. Sebastian's all the way in there. He's actually putting his body on the line. My back, I would snap in half if any of the things Sebastian does in there would be done on me. So I'm not gonna go on that level. But check him out, the Strong Style Cinephile, around Texas and all over the states. You can find him. In fact, before we get into X-Men 97 and just kind of going over that, because that's why we're here, let's stand on ceremony a little bit. Where can we find you next? Putting the boots to somebody.
Uh, Not gonna be for till the only thing I have confirmed right now is in August. So if you're a wrestling fan or a wrestling promoter out there, you're looking for new blood for your show, uh, Sebastion Envy. You can find me at Sebastion Envy across all like Facebook, Instagram, uh, Twitter, X, Threads. I mean, TikTok. That's where you can find me. So tell them to bring me in. Ladies and gentlemen, children of the interwebs out there, Sebastion Envy, Strong Style Cinema. Violin is all come down to this.
Well, I'm in August. I start back too with King of Sports Wrestling, so we can bring you back in. I think you would fit in very well out there in King of Sports.
Yeah, I've hit up like the folks at King of Sports like a few times. I just like haven't been brought in. That and a few other places. It's like, oh, I've been thinking about bringing him in for a minute or whatever. I'm like, well, let's do that.
Quit
Right,
thinking,
so.
Kyber. Kyber might see this. Kyber might see this. I'll talk to Kyber. Kyber's a good guy, and you're a good guy, and we're about to talk about some really good content because over the past, I guess, about 2 months, 2.5 months, X-Men 97 has been a weekly release on Disney Plus. It's a Marvel's animation just masterpiece. I think we both kind of agree on that just from our preliminary just kind of discussions. But what were your just overall thoughts on the season in general?
I loved it. My first impression of it from the trailers and stuff, which I think we kind of with you had mentioned on when I made a comment about it on my page, and I wasn't exactly feeling the art style and
Yeah.
with it. I'm still I've gotten used to it, but it's still something about it's just kind of like off to me. But it was a fantastic show. I found myself every Wednesday going to work on a few hours of sleep because I would stay up until 2 o'clock. So we're in Central, 2 o'clock till the episode goes live on Disney Plus, and I would watch it. I would be kind of kicking myself as the day went on, but it was totally worth it each and every time. It was just a nostalgic kick in the pants that still took the characters, took the story, and just evolved and made it something uh, more and something better than the series that kind of came before it. I love the series that came before it, of course,
Right.
but X-Men 97 is just done with today's narrative depth with what you can do with animation as far as like the action scenes and some of the um, the battles. How they got creative with some of the mutants' powers as far as like Cyclops especially, and Rogue in some cases. It was just a good all around fun show. It adapted some key storylines in different ways, which I'm fine with. And that was one thing that I loved about the MCU, and the fact that they took Civil War, Age of Ultron, some other storylines, and they adapted them to the narrative, to the world that they have constructed. So they took, your Mutant Massacre, your E for Extinction, your Life Death, your Operation Zero Tolerance, your Inferno, your Age of Apocalypse, and they're crafting them to the world that they're building. And I like that. And I'm excited for what's to come because it's just this season was fantastic. Will we get a sophomore slump with it? That's the question. Because it's like a lot of people are kind of wondering, will this live up to the original series? Then it did. Then we had the first couple episodes, and it's like, well, can they sustain the success? And they did. But then it's like, with the second season, is it going to be a drop off? And we don't know. We know it's in production, but we don't know like what it's going to bring us. But I'm excited for it because all in all, it was just a fantastic, worthwhile series.
Same. You pretty much hit on everything when it came down to the beginning of how you kind of thought about it when you first saw the trailer. The first trailer, which I mean, want to talk about anticipation. I'm an X-Men fan. Think of like if anything of comics that I can say I'm an actual fan of, and I would almost put myself in a fandom of. It is X-Men. X-Men has always been something that's really been near and dear to me. So the fact they were bringing back the thing that got me into it, just scared me. It scared me for a second. The Disney track record has been very hit or miss, just in general when it comes to products that they're doing. It doesn't matter what universe they're doing. It doesn't matter what product they have, what license they're doing. It's been hit or miss. Some's been good, some's been spectacular, some's been god awful, and then some's been overhyped. And I was hoping that this wasn't an overhyped job, that we weren't gonna get into it, and then all of a sudden you're 15 minutes in the first episode and you're like, oh crap, oh no, and it didn't. Like 15 minutes in the first episode, I'm like, okay, whoever is writing this, which Bo DeMaio and his crew did a wonderful job, and hopefully the rest of the crew that's still there after Bo Lee was left now who's still gonna do a good job. I like, you could tell that they had a love for X-Men, and that's my biggest assessment just on the first season as whole. That was a love letter to people who loved X-Men. If you love the comics, you got it. If you love the old series, you got it. If you love just the movies too, if all you knew were X-Men from the movies and you watched that show, you were still given some things where you were like, okay, I get it. I understand this. I get that reference.
Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
And you weren't alienated. And I think that's something that this show really allowed, that I think some properties that Marvel doesn't allow. Didn't alienate you for not knowing the property, but it rewarded you if you really, really knew it. I think some of these things, and not to get too far into other things, but like a thing like a Moon Knight, didn't reward you for not knowing who Moon Knight was. You really needed to know who Moon Knight was to really like that. There's lots of little things where it's like, I need to know what this is from the comics to really understand this. And this first season, at least, did not do that with X-Men. And so what this first season also did with X-Men was like bring out a lot of different opinions on some of their, the social things, the bread and butter of what modern X-Men is, which is a lot of social ideas. Like, if you ask, we can't ask Stanley now, but if you ask Stanley back in the day, why did he create X-Men? Well, I needed to have, other powers.
And my publisher said, give me another book, Stan. We're going strong. Let's do some more. Well, in order to get a new superhero, you have to think of what his or her power is. That's not too hard. But you have to figure out, how did they get that power? And that's a little difficult.
I just needed to call them mutants, I didn't mean for it to be a whole social thing. It kind of just worked out that way, but...
So I had already given them their powers, and then it hit me. What if they're mutants? What if they were born that way?
Now it is definitely locked in, and it is. what was your reaction to the reactions of some of the, very obvious social things that they did in X-Men, like, like Morph being being non-binary, which to me just makes sense.
It totally makes sense, and it's like I think I'd seen where might have been like a message board, might have been a video that somebody put out where it's like these things like non-binary and that sort of identification, like just literally, I mean, it may have been a thing back then, but it really kind of wasn't a thing. So it like some of these things that are being attributed to these characters, like kind of just makes sense because we've changed.
Yep.
Society has changed. How we interpret um, things, how we interpret ourselves, how we see ourselves has changed since the old show. So we need to change and evolve with it. And just the idea that a changeling being non-binary kind of just makes sense because my like in the video I talked about was kind of like who knows how like Morph showed up to the X-Men in that you know masculine form. How do we know that that's what Morph came out of the womb as?
Right. Yeah.
That's
Maybe
just what he's stuck to. So
he
just the
felt
idea
more
that
comfortable
yeah.
like that. You know what I mean? Or maybe he knew
Mhm.
he would be more accepted in whatever he was trying to do by being a white male. That'd be awesome. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, man. If I could change anything at some point in times.
So it just the backlash against that to me, and that leading to what we talked about before we started was just the idea of like woke and just the thing today in our social climate, our political climate is you just attach woke basically to anything that certain segments of the population or certain people who hold certain beliefs or views just don't like.
Yes.
Essentially, it's just I don't like that. That's woke, and that's bad. And
Mm-hmm.
it just the idea that people are railing against the X-Men, which, as you said, Stanley might have not um, meant for well, as he's creating Professor X and Cyclops and the whole conflict of mutants and humans like that. He's not actively attributing that to the allegory or the parallels between the struggles of minorities in society
Right.
against the majority. But that's, as you said, what it's kind of becomes, and writers have leaned into that over the years. So the idea that X-Men going woke and that being a bad thing is like, bro, like since like from the beginning.
I've always tried to do our stories so that it didn't matter if you were of the white race, the black race, the brown race, or whatever. So, social issues I try to get in the background or underlaying a plot, but never to the point of letting it interfere with the story or hitting the reader over the head.
Maybe not from the beginning, because I mean, like right now, I'm going back on Marvel's digital app, and I'm like starting with the first X-Men from the '60s, and I'm like just reading them through.
Yeah.
And some of those issues, oh my god, it's like some stuff some dialogue and some of the stuff that's going on. I'm like, oh my god, the '60s, bro. It's,
They were a superhero team. They started out actually as a superhero team with powers and that was what you read basically.
and it's like, um, and somebody even brought up a point that some people who like as kids they were watching the show in its sort of like wokeness even back then,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were fine with it, but now as they've grown up and they've attached themselves to certain ideologies and beliefs and views, now they have an issue with it because of like what they've attached themselves to. You were fine with it as a kid, but now that you've gone this way, now you have a problem with this what's essentially the same thing.
We have a video on this channel on the Boys channel, because this will be on your channel as well too. On the Boys channel, we just did a video on wokeness and the X-Men, and that was one of my points was kind of this idea of watching the 92 series, and if you really watch it again, some of that's very overtly, yes, this is social political. It may not be as worded as it is in this version of X-Men. I think one of my biggest cringe moments actually was hearing Professor X saying a quiet part out loud, which in 1997 wasn't necessarily a phrase that everybody was saying. There was probably people that were saying that, but it wasn't a big enough phrase to where Professor X in space is saying that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was like, okay, you're that's a shoehorn to a point of modern, you know, that ideal into this. But the 92 series was going blatantly, yeah, some of these people don't like these people because they're different. Choose your difference. Choose whatever difference in the world that you want to these mutants represent. These people hate them just because they're different. It was very overt. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people who don't, I think, you know, just think about it like that. Just like people who listen to Rage Against the Machine, like back in the day, and were like jamming to Raid songs, jamming hard to Raid songs, and then now are like, oh, that's what they were saying. Well, yeah, man, yeah, they were saying they didn't like cops. Like they were saying cops are racist. They were saying this, not all
Mm,
cops, but they were saying some cops are racist.
mm,
Like and now, you know, people are all up in arm about it. Well, dude, this is like 1993. They were yelling this. 1992 X-Men, 1993 X-Men, 94 X-Men were yelling this too. 1970s X-Men were kind of starting to yell this more because they added the different races and things like that. So it's like, you know, this has been something that has always been brewing within X-Men, and I think that this show, and I think we both agree on this, did a very good job at only a few times making it so slapping you in the face with the social commentary.
mm.